Be seated, everyone, and welcome to... I'll be a bit closer to the microphone. I'm a bit tall. Welcome to the Water for Climate Pavilion, both online and in the room. We will, for the next 30 minutes or so, embark on a journey together, a journey that will take us along water's route from its source to the sea. We will hear about and we will talk about why it is so important to remember that water doesn't just suddenly appear. It comes from somewhere and it's going somewhere. And we will speak about why it's important to remember those befores and the afters to when we fill our glasses with water, if indeed we have that opportunity, of course. These connections are captured in a film called The Journey of Water, which has been co-produced by WWF and SeaWe. And we will show this film now. It's about 12 minutes, and we will have a discussion afterwards. So please roll The Journey of Water.
With this coalition, we hope to meaningfully contribute towards the uptake of nature-based solutions in Bonaire, but also within the wider small island developing states region. This will be threefold through the co-development of blue financing mechanisms for scalable nature-based solutions, expansion of our knowledge-sharing capabilities through our platforms, and increased cross-sectoral collaboration in projects and scalable pilots. Bonaire, one of the Dutch Caribbean islands, is facing major challenges: managing mass tourism and population growth, preventing high erosion.
Not really what we was expecting, but we're getting there. I can tell everyone joining online that there is frantic action happening in the control room at the moment. If we do have difficulties, we may bring the panel up so long.
Hi, just to...
Introducing ECB's Sustainable Call Account.
Do we expect it within the next minute or two? Yep, okay. The Journey of Water.
We were doing in-school programs talking about why is water important? And I said, well, where do we get our water from? The students, they're like, at the faucet. And I'm like, okay, but like our water systems, these come from our environment. And we want to provide them with opportunities to recognize that we are interconnected with our environment. And we are interconnected with how nature is evolving all around us.
Water doesn't come from a tap. Water comes from nature. That means that all our lives depend on a healthy relationship between land and water. From source to sea, most of us have forgotten the journey that water takes to get to us. Even in a huge megacity like New York, the journey of water starts in nature. Approximately 90% of New York City's water supply comes from the Catskill Mountains, and protecting that source has always been a priority. But in the 1990s, the city faced a choice to meet new drinking water standards. They needed to either build a massive filtration plant, or they could find ways to ensure that the water coming from the Catskills was even cleaner and more secure.
There's a core value from New York City that says the right thing to do is to work with nature and work with people in the watershed to protect the quality of the water at its source. What happens on the land affects the quality of the water.
Every step, the leaves, the trees, the roots, the soil, they all act as filters that are cleaning the water. Healthy land equals healthy water.
New York decided to double down on its commitment to protecting the source of its water, avoiding the extremely high costs of a new filtration plant.
It would cost about $10 to $12 billion to construct, and it would cost about $250 million each year to operate. Those are costs that New York City and the ratepayers and the residents of New York City have been able to avoid for the long term as a result of all the good science-based work that's been done here in the watershed to protect the quality of water at its source.
These investments in protecting the source of water, done through collaborations with local landowners and communities, are great examples of some of the nature-based solutions that can solve our challenges with water. These investments resulted in not only some of the cleanest drinking water in the world and huge savings for taxpayers, but also reduced soil erosion and provided lands for thriving wildlife and beloved recreational spaces for people across the region.
That really speaks to a hallmark of nature-based solutions, that they almost always are providing multiple benefits. I can guarantee you that the people who come here and love this and enjoy this aren't thinking filtration system in their head. They are just thinking of the beauty of this place, the serenity. People in New York absolutely love these places.
Nature-based solutions can be directed towards many other challenges. In New York City, these solutions can help reduce flood risk and improve the quality of the water that flows into its bays and harbors. Cities are full of hard surfaces, buildings, roads, and parking lots. These surfaces don't absorb water during storm events, causing high flood risk. Bringing back nature into our cities can slow the flow, reduce floods, and create green, cool places. New York City invested in a Blue Belt program that restores wetlands and other natural features, often called green infrastructure when used to manage stormwater.
And we use green infrastructure to collect that water, to kind of hold it temporarily, naturally treat it, and release it in a way that doesn't flood people downstream. And I'm happy to say that the Blue Belt program, which is 25 years old, we haven't had any residential or commercial flooding at any of our 98 sites.
Working with nature-based solutions not only protects people, they bring nature back into our cities and into our lives. Beyond improving water quality and reducing flood risk, the Blue Belt program also brings back native plants and animals across the city streams, wetlands, bays, and harbors.
In the past 3 years, we have a 100% increase of whale sightings and seal sightings around the city as we clean that water.
But nature-based solutions don't only restore nature, they restore the connections between people and nature. At Groundwork Hudson Valley, students on the Green Team work on nature-based solutions to protect water and bring nature into the heart of cities.
I think that green infrastructure is such an important thing. It's such a vital need, and it kind of encourages a healthy way that the community can interact with one another and find, joy or improve their mental health. And for a lot of kids, I feel like that's such a vital experience to kind of shape what they want to be and how they can, integrate themselves into this experience and develop a passion for nature.
I grew up in New York City. I was born and raised here. We started to go a little bit further north with my family, and we would explore the aqueduct, because they've made it such a great place for people to go out and participate in nature.
There exists a natural connection between the source and the sea, and everything in between. How we manage land and how we manage fresh water ultimately affects the health and productivity of coastal waters. Nowhere is this more clear than in communities that depend on healthy coasts, such as on Long Island.
Water is everything to us on Long Island. It's our economy, it's our way of life, it's our history, it's where people work, where they recreate. In many ways, it's why people live here on this island, because of our beaches and our rivers and our bays and the water and fishing.
And this connection or continuum from land to freshwater to coast and the marine environment, we are part of that continuum. And we need to be able to honor that in the way that we make decisions, the investments we make, the infrastructure we build, how we live on the earth. The more we can create a holistic way of working with nature, the more that we make that healthy, that's when we will reap the benefits that nature can contribute to us.
150 years ago, oyster beds were prominent all around Staten Island. That ended when the water quality was just terrible and you couldn't eat the oysters anymore. So it's important when we're discharging our water down that we're cleaning it naturally as best we can.
We used to have shellfish, oyster plants basically, and they would have piles of shell outside of them that were as high as a two-story house. One of the ways that we've been able to sort of begin to build it back is through public education and having people understand that what they do on land affects the water, and that we have a tool called aquaculture that can at least help us put these populations back in the bay. The hope is that we can have our farms large enough that when we're putting our shellfish out there, they're surviving, they're thriving. It's making a measurable impact on the water quality.
On this journey of water, we've been talking about the water coming from the forests up in the Catskills, coming down through New York City. Now we're out here along the ocean. We need to course correct to working with nature as opposed to only taking from nature. We have harmed it too much. The consequences will only get worse and worse.
In 50 years, I would like to see more commercial fishing and shell fishing. That means the bay's healthier, and that means to me that people understood in this day and age that what they do on land affects the water. If it's healthy enough to sustain human harvest activity, then that means it's a really healthy estuary, and it's healthy for everything else that depends on the bay, because our estuaries are nurseries for fish.
Nature-based solutions in many ways is rediscovering knowledge that we've always had about how nature can support us. And the lessons that we're hearing, the solutions that we're hearing about really can be applied broadly and can be applied in cities and countries and communities around the world.
And if we can engage with the people, especially around indigenous communities who have done this for such a long time, if we can learn from the people who are doing it right and who have done it for so long before us, that's how we're gonna get back to this place of engaging properly.
I can see that the nature-based solutions are so important. I'll honestly change the landscapes of cities entirely to be more open, to have gardens on almost every other street corner for kids to run through, teach kids how they can put their hands into the earth and learn from the earth.
By investing in nature-based solutions, we get the power of nature on our side. Clean water comes from nature, and we can work with nature to ensure that we send clean water to our coasts and oceans. From source to sea, We can work with nature, not against it, to ensure a safe and secure future where nature is integrated into our cities and into our lives.
Few minor technical glitches there. The film is available on YouTube, so you can Google The Journey of Water if you want to rewatch it without the pop-ups. So let's follow up with a bit of a discussion. My name is Andreas Karlsson, by the way. I work for SeaWe. With me on, well, stage, I guess. You saw her in the film as well. Is my colleague at SeaWe, Ruth Matthews. We have Jesse Gallon from WWF, and also joining us online is Floris Bogard from Deltares. He's currently in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Jesse, if I can start with you. WWF initiated the production of this film. Why is this story so important for WWF?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks everyone for being here and online. I think for us at WWF, the journey of water is sort of a term we can almost unpack in three different but integrated ways. The first is literally the journey of water itself. As you heard in the video, water doesn't just come from a tap. It starts, obviously, as we all here and so well know, upstream at the headwaters, and there is a whole life cycle and impact on nature and influence of all of the various local ecosystems that flow through it. It flows through and really has its own unique story, and so there's a story you want to tell on that front. I think the second sort of complementary definition is about New York. So New York, again, as you heard in the video, has this now more than 20-year history of making resource management decisions and water management decisions based from a nature-based perspective, which is somewhat unique for a major metropolitan area like itself. So we wanted to be able to tell this story. We actually used this video at the UN Water Conference back in March, and that's where this first premiered. And so it was a chance for New York to sort of highlight themselves as a demonstration of what is possible when you think smartly about your upstream behavior. And then the third complementary piece of your answer, I think, is about taking people to the water. So a journey maybe to water, not of water. But WWF has actually done a series of videos like this in the past in Kenya and South Africa and Malaysia, where we bring various members of the population, and it can be anyone from construction workers to municipal employees and policymakers, but also there was a musician in this video. You saw the two young youth in the video. We want to bring them to the watershed, to the river basin, and help them understand what are the influences on the water they probably take for granted in their everyday lives, and how can they make better decisions, how can they be better advocates, how they can hopefully be better, more sustainable proponents like ourselves, and really come from a new place and educate them that way, and that's the opportunity we're looking at.
And we hear Jeff say in the film that nature-based solutions are really rediscovering knowledge that we've always had, which obviously begs the question, when did we lose it and why?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as a communicator, I'm probably not qualified to answer from a technical perspective, but I'll give you more of a sort of narrative perspective. I mean, obviously indigenous communities around the world have this knowledge, use this knowledge, demonstrate this knowledge every single day. And the problem is we don't listen to them often enough. But as the developing world really changed our own behavior, chose to prioritize infrastructure over some other benefits that probably need to be certainly better looked at, that's when the behavior change, unfortunately, took the turn. And so this is an opportunity to sort of re-amplify those solutions, re-amplify that behavior, and hopefully provide voices to some of the people who know better than us.
And these solutions, these nature-based solutions, Ruth, increasingly being referred to, not always with much explanation behind them. Can you please help us understand how they fit in with a journey of water?
Well, I'll give that a try. One of the things that I really enjoyed about participating in the making of this video is hearing from the New York City leaders and environment agency, as well as the public and private sector actors in various locations, how they are rethinking the ways to address the issues that that cities face in terms of water supply, water sanitation, and wastewater treatment, stormwater management, adaptation to climate change, and protecting the way of life and the capacity to have a lifestyle in the area. And so what I really appreciated is that they approach it more from a perspective of what are the bits and pieces that we can put together. And I think this is a really important message, because as we're here at COP28 and very much focused on the global stocktake, on the global goal on adaptation, and the NDCs and NAPs, and how are we going to move forward, it's really evident that nature is one of the solutions, and primarily, I would say, those freshwater ecosystems, coastal ecosystems, and the marine ecosystem really can work for us to both mitigate and adapt to climate change. And so we don't need to imagine like a massive, broad-scale change that might disrupt populations and result in the need to move people and such. What we can do is put them in where it's possible. For one example, it was one of the speakers, you saw him, Rob, was saying that on Staten Island, just the way that they plant trees and modify the land around those tree plantings helps to slow down the water, helps to replenish the groundwater, and helps to clean the water before it enters the coastal environment. So I think there's a real learning here from doing this journey of water in New York for other cities and that are facing these same issues. How can we bring this package of nature-based solutions to benefit?
Let's stick with that a bit, and we'll go to Flores. Thank you for joining us from Amsterdam. When we hear nature-based solutions, we may not immediately think of an urban context. But these solutions can and are being implemented there as well. Can you please give us some further examples of how this can work in practice?
Yeah, exactly. If we talk, first of all, thank you for having me, of course, from the Netherlands. I was in Dubai, but now back with a warm sweater. It's 0 degrees out here, so that explains that. In an urban context as the Netherlands, where I am, so the Randstad region, it's about 9 million people. One of the urban dense areas of Europe, being in a situation that actually most of it was water. We created most of the cities if you really go back in time. So if you want to go back to nature-based solutions as it was, mostly it was water. For a city, for example, Rotterdam, we have one big wetland still, Biesbos, that is probably the same scale as in the video, which is quite inspiring, especially because it speaks to a lot of people, and the severe problems that we have in cities are now heat, drought, floodings, but also the deterioration of water quality. So I think a lot of things are, in that case, mostly comparable. And the only thing that we had to do in Rotterdam and other cities like Amsterdam as well in urban context is also have the big scale, large nature-based solution, but also the small scale. So in a city of Rotterdam, for example, more than 250 locations there are with rain gardens, bioswales to help that mission on water quality, drought, floodings, and they're scattered around the city. So and that helps us to keep our feet dry, so to say.
And isn't it so also that there is, I mean, except for protecting nature, biodiversity, etc., there are also, I mean, even if you don't care about that, there are still strong arguments for nature-based solutions. What are those arguments and benefits?
Yeah, mostly because we're talking about if we really go into the city, the backyards of a lot of people, and Not everybody is really engaged with climate change, so mostly they care about greening the environment basically for financial benefit. Their houses go up in prices, the municipality gets more tax on the houses, so that's one thing that speaks to them. And of course also nature cooling down effects is wide understood. We had some very hot summers as in the other regions of the world, of course, and to see how the water actually goes to depressions in the field like bioswales or rain gardens instead of their houses. So that really speaks on different different levels to a lot of people in the city.
So no arguments against, really. This is a short session. I'll come back to you, Jesse, in the room here now. What reactions have you had to the film? Do you see any impact in bringing out the story?
I think it's more about the impact of the storytelling collectively than any one 12-minute video that we can put on YouTube or share at even forums like this, where our constituency, for better, more than worse, is on board with this plan already. You guys all feel the same way about water that we clearly do as well. But I think the opportunity is by demonstrating that we can bring the variety of water users to better understand their water access, their water security, and the influences on their water supply. They become better allies for water stewardship in the long run. And we're seeing that in New York. We're seeing that certainly in places where we've done, like I mentioned, the other videos in the past. And that's really the opportunity for us. You know, and it's all piece of the larger conversation here as well. You know, this pavilion is hashtagged water for climate. We can't pursue climate solutions if we don't incorporate the most abundant resource on the planet and steward it appropriately. So making those decisions the right way is all part of the actual climate action plan as well. So.
And Ruth, finally, we saw in the film nature-based solutions for the benefit of humans and nature alike. But how do we connect these? If we look at this as one journey, how do we tie them together? How do we make sure that we capture this sort of holistic thinking in our policies and practices?
Yeah, thank you for that. And it actually is a really exciting collaboration between WWF and CWE because WWF has done these other journey of water, and it was more, you know, from source to tap to really help the general public understand that, you know, water doesn't come from the tap, it comes from nature. But when we connected, I lead our Source to Sea program at CWE. I said, well, why don't we go from source to sea? And that really brought in the aspect of how nature-based solutions can also be used to clean the water, to protect from sea level rise, to address stormwater and flooding and droughts. And so what we really are doing with this work is recognizing that we are in a continuum from source to sea, but also from sea back up to source. And so we really need to be working together across different sectors, across different geographies, to be able to bring a vision that has that holistic nature to it and addresses those connectivities. We have too often been working in silos. Even WWF and CWE were able to break down that silo and find this continuity between us that can also happen across many different arrangements.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Jesse. And also thank you, Flores, for joining us on a Sunday morning from Amsterdam. The film is A Journey of Water, and you can find it on YouTube if you want to rewatch it. Thank you very much for being here.